Hi, everybody. Hope you're well. So today we're doing a YouTube live with Brian. I'm Gwen. I'm the CMO of Bitdegree. I'm really happy to be live today with Brian. So first of all, one thing, as you know, YouTube live will be available anytime you want. So if you don't have the time to watch the whole live today, don't worry. It will be on the YouTube channel. And obviously we'll be able to repost it and reshare it afterwards. So as I said, I'm Gwen. I'm the CMO of Bitdegree. I actually joined Bitdegree not so long ago, and I'm really happy to be part of the marketing team. Well, I launched I joined Bitdegree to help launch Bitdegree Academy, which is our newest product. And Bitdegree Academy is basically a place where we create our own content in fields that we know are in high demand on the job market. And one of the first courses that we launched was the AWS training course. So that's part of Bitdegree Academy, and we're helping people pass their AWS CCP exam. CCP stands for Certified Cloud Practitioner, and that's the foundational course, or let's say certification to pass to get into cloud computing. There are many others. I don't know all of them. Maybe Brian, you do, but yeah, that's the first step into your, let's say, cloud career. And we're really proud to have created this course to help people launch their cloud career. And today we're welcoming Brian, who's the freshly certified cloud practitioner and who's been very involved in the cloud computing community and the AWS community. So welcome, Brian. Can you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit more about who you are, where you come from, where do you live, etc., etc.
Yeah, Gwen, thank you so much for having me here. It was so great to connect over Instagram and, kind of like small world, right? Like you can use social media to connect with anyone. So I'm just grateful to be here. So I'm a huge advocate of the cloud, specifically because I have a very non-traditional way in which I got into tech. I really studied communication, public relations, marketing, back in college, and was sort of learning about, how to amplify messages and how to share and communicate, because those are just the most important skills. I think LinkedIn did a survey a year back, and they ranked the top skills that you need to know in communication, super important. And I took this. It was basically the principles and practices of data science. And it was a certification course, actually at my alma mater at Boston University. And that just blew my mind of what you could do with data, what you could do with compute. And we were doing a lot of social sentiment analysis. And that's really what got me into technology. I also did an internship, and I was studying some AI. And I remember getting back to campus and I was like, oh, this is so cool. So that really spurred my career to be interested in focusing in technology. And I got really involved in the open source community at the start of the pandemic. I joined this team called Corona Tracker and actually helped founded this technology. And we built this open source tool that integrated with AWS and with Blockstack. And basically it created a decentralized way to track your symptoms. So users own their own data, but then they're able to track, the symptoms, whether you were healthy or you were developing symptoms related to COVID. This was at the start of the pandemic when it was very scary, and it still is very scary, but this was we didn't really know like what was going on. And it was kind of like apocalyptic, that's really how it felt. So we assembled this team, and
that's very interesting. That actually would be my first question to you. So you have a very practical case here that you worked with AWS with. So did you know anything about AWS before you let's say embark on this project, or was it totally new to you? And can you explain a little bit how it came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a huge advocate of team-based learning. So I was very fresh. I knew a little bit about AWS in the sense of what it sort of could do, but I really didn't know the depth and the breadth of what AWS could provide. So we assembled this technology team, and through learning through other things, sort of, I was the UI UX lead, so I was helping on the design, and I was teaching, how to use Figma and how to use these things. And then we had people that were really good on cloud, and then they were able to help inform us. So I was learning and they were learning, and it was really cool. And I think when you assemble a team of people that are really about the same mission and vision, you're able to just learn really at scale. And as an AWS community builder now, it's sort of light years from when I started a year back, but it's very cool because I'm a part of this global community of builders and innovators and people that, want to use the cloud. And people are building crazy models in Python to serverless applications that don't need a database. It just runs in the cloud. There's a whole mobile application team. I'm in the data and databases team, so more focused on data, business intelligence, analytics, that type of thing. But it's very cool to be sort of in those communities where you're just exposed to just a lot of learning.
That's really nice. That's really interesting. So that's basically the premise, or like the start of your AWS journey.
Yeah.
So now tell me, so you obviously had a lot of things to learn. So obviously you were new to AWS. So how did you manage this? So you had this project, you had this idea with the team that you were trying to build. How did you basically get all your knowledge, and how did you make that happen?
I have a very, like, anyone who knows me, I have a very Brian way of answering this, but I'd say you kind of just have to like throw yourself, into the fire, and you just got to learn. And it's a lot. I would say I was really kind of taken aback at how much there was to learn. But I think it's like anything, and I really equate this, so anyone in the creative world will understand this. My journey with understanding Photoshop took a lot of years. It's a journey, right? It's like a marathon, not a sprint, as we like to say. So I really just started with YouTube videos, and I started with Medium articles, and you sort of learn. And I think one of the ways that I've been mentored is figure out, and actually the Chrono Tracker team was really great in teaching me this. It's sort of, if there's a problem that you want to solve, and AWS actually shares the same mindset too, but at least from the team that I've been working with. So it's sort of, if you have a problem, it's like, how do I do X? And then you might Google it. And then as you find out, you sort of assemble this action plan of, okay, here are the components, and here's what I think is going to, okay, there's this solution that does this, but I need to build this to connect this to this. So it's, you sort of want to think of it as building. I like Warren Buffett always has this great phrase of how learning, like if you can learn 1% every day, by the end of the year, you've increased by 365%. So I love that mindset of you're not going to know everything in the cloud today. You're not going to know everything in the cloud tomorrow, but can you, tangibly, build and grow and scale? So that's really what it was for me, was just every day, can I learn at least one new thing every single day related to cloud? And
that's interesting because I can relate totally to that. I took a data analytics course lately, and I had projects to work on, and I was spending hours on Stack Overflow, just typing my questions, how to do this, how to do that. So it's good to have a project in mind, and you'll learn step by step. But as for me, obviously I was following an online course. I really found it useful, and I also had mentors, or at least like a community of people that I could speak to. So when you can learn stuff on your own. I think, like, if you're really dedicated, you can. But I think it's quite helpful to have people to interact with. And now you're an AWS community builder. So can you tell us a bit more about how important having a community or having people helping you, like mentors, can really help you with your learning?
Oh, absolutely. It's everything. I'm so grateful for just the opportunity to be an AWS community builder, because I'm learning so much every single week. We have trainings, there's webinars that we get invited to. I was learning about just AI tools, so SageMaker 1 week. The next week, there was a really great recent session on open source community. There was another one on technical blog writing. So I think the title was How to Create Awesome Blog Posts, or awesome technical blog posts. So it's everything from super technical down to the creative, down to how do I make content, to, really how do I build. And I was really surprised, gratefully surprised at how receptive people are to asking and answering questions. I think one of the things that I just am very, I try to talk about this quite a lot, but sometimes like in technology, there's a ton of imposter syndrome, and there's a ton of you want to sort of front and not feel like you have to ask the question, because there's this sort of unwritten rule that like you have to know everything. And I love how AWS breaks that down to be like, ask questions. I mean, there's tons of these channels in our Slack, and we're just messaging back and forth, and it's people contributing, people, writing code and being like, hey, maybe I'm getting this error. Like, how do I fix this? To, I have this idea for something, what are the ways that, I can solve this, or does anyone have any perspective? So I'm learning so much from the trainings and from the community. And I've met so many amazing people through the program. People you connect on social media, and these are like, friends and developers for life, right? It's amazing when you can, align with like-minded people who care, know the technology is really powerful. It can really impact lives. So it's being part of that community is really great.
That's exactly what we're trying to do here with the Bitdegree Academy, is to, obviously we're trying to bring people together. Obviously everybody will have their own like professional goal, like to basically work with AWS. But if we can bring these people together, like maybe working on similar projects, or even talking to one another, like we're partnering with companies, for example, where the team members are working with AWS, and they have to upskill, like they have to keep up to date with their skills. So we're giving them access to the course, and as a team, it's quite interesting to learn together, and it's kind of being a team building experience as well. Yeah. So going back to you being a certified cloud practitioner, I know we have a few people here watching us, or who will be watching us, who are willing to pass the exam. Do you have some like tips, or like, can you tell us a bit more about how it works? Like can you just be practical? Like, how is the exam? How many questions do you have? Or like, what will you get?
Yeah, exactly. And I love sharing this. This is my little dev journal. So I had a section for Cloud Practitioner, and then I'm going to show you. So I took a ton of notes on this. So I had it broken down by all the services, all of this stuff. So basically, and you could see all the highlights. So what I started was doing, if you look up AWS Cloud Products, that's a page on the AWS website. It breaks it down by all of the different sections. So it's like the title, and then there's the different AWS services. So you don't have to know all of them. That's helpful as a starting point. So sort of there's these buckets, and then there's these subcomponents that you can go into and build on and explore on. And then, I think you definitely want to have a digital course to go through this. Kind of like you don't want to go through it alone. I think it can be kind of scary and intimidating to be like, there's all these things that I have to know, and there's this huge certification. And just want to be clear, it's not scary. It's very doable. It's kind of like, if I, from a non-technical background, can pass this, anyone can. So I think it's some of the things when I actually have a lot of conversations on Instagram and on social media, and people ask, I'm like, I want to take this exam, but like, I'm afraid of, taking it. And that's totally valid, because doing something new is scary, but it's exciting, because what this exam enables you to do is have that fundamental understanding of compute serverless architecture, what AWS provides from a business and a developer perspective. There's all these different great tangible benefits to a career. And it just gives you that established credibility of, I know the cloud versus, okay, I have the certification and it says that I know these things. So there's a lot of value in that.
But I guess there's a difference between, like, you still have to keep up to date after getting your certification, right? A lot of people kind of like really train or learn to pass the exam, but you really have to understand what it's for and like what it will give you afterwards. So you have to keep up to date. And do you remember we were discussing about what the resources AWS provides, like white papers or anything like this? Like, what would you say is most useful to prepare for that, for the exam? Because I know that some people, like, there's so much information out there. So how do you help people find the best, let's say, resources to train and to prepare for the exam?
It definitely. I'd say sort of twofold. I learn best by videos and visuals. That's just how you sort of have to know yourself and you have to know how you study. Like
Yeah.
some people are, give me, the docs or the documentation and I'm just going to go through it and I'm going to read through this. Some people really need like walkthroughs, tutorials. Some people really need like team-based pair programming. But I'd say having videos and pairing that with actually building. I'm grateful that I was able to combine both. I actually had
Hmm.
a building background with AWS specifically because at my startup, Airblock Technologies, we use serverless architecture. So I had already been building within the cloud. So that was really helpful because I sort of had like a head start in a sense. But a lot of where the training for me was I needed to actually go through videos and training to understand, what do I actually need to know and what do I need to do? Because actually going through my training, I actually learned quite a lot and it actually helped to fill in gaps. And I think it's sort of, you could look at that to be like, well, that's great. That's the whole point of these exams because what you learn, there's obviously going to be things that you don't necessarily know. So
Of course.
having a program that's comprehensive can actually be really helpful as not just passing the exam, but it's really building and scaling. And that's really
Hmm.
where I think a program has its most value because it's filling in those gaps. So now when you report to your boss or your supervisor or your team or advisors or stakeholders or whomever, you say these are the best practices. This is what's recommended by AWS or a leading tech cloud provider, and this is what we should be doing. And you're able to be more advisory as opposed to like medium articling or stack overflowing, which has its place for sure. But when
Yeah.
you really have those fundamental steps, to me, it makes all the difference.
Okay, that makes sense. And I know that you had a look at the training course,
Mhm.
the Bitdegree training course. There's actually a question here that's asking like, are the AWS courses on Bitdegree comprehensive enough to pass the test? So I know we were having a small discussion just before the live about the videos and video
Mhm.
content. What did you think of it? Like, did you find it comprehensive and useful?
Yeah, I really like the quizzes sort of sprinkled throughout the actual buckets. I have it actually open right now, but how you broke it down into different categories. So security is actually really important now in the exam. Well architected systems and frameworks, that's really important. And then having sort of that system of perpetual just quizzing and assessment, that's going to be really helpful because I think what can happen sometimes when you're training is you can feel like you know it, but then if you're not constantly being assessed on it, it can
Hmm.
it can sort of it's like you learn through tests or you learn through kind of quizzing yourself. So I liked how you sprinkle that in throughout the program to make sure that you're able to answer questions, and these might be questions that you could see on an exam or a question like it. I know when we talked about this earlier, but some of the questions, they're very situational. So like given
Hmm.
this situation and you need to increase app resiliency, which of the following AWS solutions is going to help you do that? You know what
That's
I mean? Or
super
like
useful. Yeah,
that
yeah,
type of
yeah.
stuff. And it's not necessarily a cloud practitioner question because that might be more of a developer or an architect. But these are the things that are good to know because when you need to, increase compute or you need to, build in some sort of serverless architecture, which of the following, is that or not? That's then going to help you set up. So when you actually want to go for a developer certification or a sysops, I was talking to one of my colleagues and she was studying for the sysops exam. So there's levels to this game, right? Like this is the foundational layer that's going to help set you up, for future success. So I like how you tee up the program for that and really give that depth and breadth of AWS, but it's specifically tailored to what you need to know. There's a million things that you could learn, right? You could spend
Yeah.
like 5 months just on EC2. I remember when I was learning about the different types of S3 storage or the different types of EC2, it can get overwhelming. So when you just can really break it down to be like, okay, you might need to know this at some point, but like right now we're just going to focus in this lane. I liked how with Bitdegree, you guys really just focus on telling you what you need to know, constant
Yeah.
reassessment, and help you get that foundational layer locked down.
Good. And did you take, like, how did you like practice your like did you take a practice exams as well before doing the exam itself?
Yeah, I tried to take a number of different exams. I got access to a one of the AWS courses or like the practice tests, and that was really helpful to just continue like thinking from an AWS perspective, like what do I need to know? Like what does AWS think I need to know, and sort of have that as the benchmark to just kind of get a foundational layer. I kind of equate that to like taking like a college preparatory exam, right? It's like you have to take that PSAT before you take the SAT. So it's just sort of that helped tee me up of the areas that I needed to know. And I took that in the beginning. And then it's like, oh, okay, I need to know more about serverless architecture. And I need to know more about compute and that type of stuff. And then tailors your training. And then I took a YouTube course on that. And that was really helpful. And then I took and I tried to like not just focus in one thing, but also to branch out so that I could learn. And that's kind of like a Brian-y answer. It's like, you don't just listen to one person, you listen to multiple people, because then it helps you sort of consolidate the information. But I would say it was, taking the test was actually very helpful. And the constant reassessment was key, I think, because then I got to know, like, sometimes if I got a question wrong, sort of like, well, why did I get that wrong? And then you can actually go in with answers and it'll tell you sort of, oh, this is the actual answer and this is why. And that's really more valuable necessarily than, getting it wrong. I mean, no one wants to get questions wrong, but really like, why'd you get it wrong? And how can I learn? And that's growth, right? That's how you level up.
So yeah, that's what we're trying to do, like having the question, like constant reassessment that you were mentioning, and also the practice exams that we have. You can practice before you actually take the exam. And you were mentioning earlier, like you come from a non-technical background, so anybody can learn AWS.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
There's people that actually study the AWS exam for business reasons or for sales. So they need it because let's say that they work at a tech company and it's or even like marketing or communications, or if you're doing consulting, you might not necessarily be the coder or the developer, but if you don't really know, how the food is made in the kitchen, if you're selling something or you're advising on something, you don't want to have those gotcha moments where it's sort of like, do you really understand like what you're talking about? And I'm very cognizant of trying to learn and fill in those gaps. I think when you don't have that, like when you just haven't been immersed in environments for years, like I have a very creative background. I used to do studio arts like way back when. So I'm a very creative and visual person, but that was over several years. So it's like when you're enmeshed in code and technology, you already have that head start. Like I had that head start in creative, and I just have a very design focused thinking mindset. But it's just sort of, fill in those gaps, and just know too that people take the exams for like completely different reasons, not just development, but also for understanding that business. It's, again, even from a sales perspective too, if your company maybe works with AWS or runs something in the cloud, that's going to be really important for you to then understand, when you talk to the developers, you don't want to be like, oh, right, that system, is it going? And then it's sort of like, you're like, they're going to be like, yep, it's running on this stuff. And you're like, okay, you sort of want to have that background to understand, really like what's going on. And it's kind of cool because especially from cloud, I attended a conference called SaaStr, and there was this really great session about the growth of cloud and the adoption of cloud over the past decade. I mean, it's one of the fastest growing technology trends right now. And it has been for, over the past decade. It's people are moving away from databases. They're moving to cloud. It's easier to scale and it's easier to use.
That's very interesting because that really shows that, first of all, you don't have to come from an IT background, like that's for sure. You don't have to be working every day with AWS to want to understand what it is, because that's like, even like the cloud itself, like understanding what it means and what are the services associated with the cloud is like, for anybody working with AWS in a company, that's interesting. And that's really something that we were trying to like show people. And like, obviously let's say the end, like the normal ending of the course that we have on the platform is to take and to pass the exam, but it's also about training, understanding what it is about. And that's also a very important part.
Absolutely.
So actually, that partly answers one of the questions that I had. Is like the question was, why should you study AWS? But I have another question more relating to like let's say job or career
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. Is it with a, let's say, if you're new to AWS or the cloud and you want to take this certification because you want to do something else, branch out, like, are you going to find a job easily, or like, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I'd say the certification is really important. But people will sort of want to know, like, why are you interested in this? I think sort of knowing your why, and I that might sound really corny, and it's sort of like, oh, not again. That's like the fifth time I've heard that, like today or something like that. But it's sort of knowing, like, are you taking the exam to get the job, or are you actually really interested in cloud? Because there's DevOps positions, there's full stack development positions,
Okay.
just really just specific cloud engineers. Like there might be people that just need to know how to build and deploy workloads in AWS. So it can really open up sort of the doors for you. It's just, you sort of want to have that why of like, why am I taking this exam? And I think there's thousands of certifications that's out there.
Yeah.
There's so much that you could learn, but it sort of get really focused on like, if you want to work at this company and this is in their stack, that's a reason to know AWS. If you want to up level your own skills and you want to say, okay, I want to take my locally created, applications, and I want to learn how to now make them ready for the world to be seen, on the World Wide Web. That's a reason to learn cloud. So that's what I say, like, know your why, know your purpose. That's really going to inform sort of where you can take this exam. And then it's not just this exam, right? There's other ones for developer or architect. There's sysops. There's secure operations if you are a security expert that you need to pass. There's so many other levels of exams. There's specific certifications on machine learning and AI.
Yeah, I
Those are
see that.
actually very
Yeah,
cool because that's a very hot topic right now and a very big trend.
totally.
So
Yeah.
I actually would probably recommend people to take a look at that because it's just, especially from all of these startups that are popping up. It's artificial intelligence, it's machine learning, it's neural nets. I actually attended a program a week ago, and it was explaining the difference between like AI, machine learning, and then deep learning and neural nets. And it is just fascinating to really see
Yeah, it is.
sort of the subsets of all of this and how it works.
Yeah. But yeah, it goes back to what you were saying earlier as well. Like, you got into AWS because you had a project and you had something really like tangible, or you were working on something, and knowing your why, as you were saying, is like kind of this exactly. Like, you know why you're doing this and why you want to go into that direction. And that kind of answers one of the like comments we have here live, is that like, if you're trying to branch out, then go ahead, but know maybe why you want to branch out. Like, what would you
Exactly.
like to do? And have a look at what this new career will give you as an opportunity, and understand as well what the certification you will need. So obviously, as we were saying, the CCP exam is probably the first step, and that's your first, let's say, step into cloud computing. But as you were mentioning, there are so many others, more specific, more advanced as well.
Yep.
Are you planning to take another one?
Yes. I sort of have this like 2-year plan of all the ones that I want to do.
Okay.
I definitely want to do architect next because that's sort of like the next step of, you learn the foundationals, but now building. So I've been building, for a little bit now, but I mean, especially, being in a startup, it's great because you're sort of exposed to a lot of different, learnings, and, you're sort of growing as the company is growing. So I'm sort of looking at where can I take my skills and make myself, the most amount of value for, my company and my team, and sort of my work family, right? That's sort of where I look at the certifications as that check of, okay, now I know these things and I'm building. But I think too, I'm trying to not also like go at it where I need to learn 10 certifications in the next 6 months. I think that's like, it's really
Yeah.
easy to think like, it's like a video game kind of. You're like, oh, I need to level up. I
Mm.
need to level up again. I need to level up again. And sort of like,
So, yeah, but why, again, goes back
yeah,
to like, why do you need it? Like, do you actually need 10 certifications for what you want to do? Probably
exactly.
not.
No.
So, yeah, that's very interesting. So allow me to just ask you a question. Like, how much does the exam cost for the CCP exam? Do you remember?
Yes, I believe it's $95,
Okay.
or $100. I know, I think some of the prices vary. Um, but yes, I think it's around that.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. So to answer the question that's being asked, so like you would have the training course, the Bitdegree training course, which is unrelated to obviously the exam cost. We don't offer discounts for the exam because that's the AWS exam, and
Mhm.
we don't have any like power over that. However, we have discounts for the Bitdegree AWS course, so you can check it out on the platform. We at the moment we have I think 30% off. So feel free to check this out. And yeah, so you're an AWS community builder. So that's even more interesting to us because you are certified cloud practitioner, but you also like participating in the AWS community.
Mhm.
So how does it work? You were mentioning Slack channels, etc. So what does that mean exactly? How does it work?
Yeah, so just like a quick pub, because I think they're going to be opening up applications soonish. So you have to apply, and there's this whole application process that you go through online, and you can Google it and see on their website. But yeah, so yeah, I mean it's great. So there's a Slack channel of all of these global developers. I was talking to people from London. I was talking to people from California. Just it's really out there. There's people, developers from India, literally all around the world, and I love that because it's all on Slack. It's all on this channel, but it's cool because one of the great benefits of being a part of the program, there's a channel for content creation. So I actually found a lot of other content creators. So I'm like, I try to post a lot on Instagram. I just kind of, that's really where like I think technology is, like just in terms of social media networking and marketing and that type of stuff. But it's really cool because there's other people that do the same thing, and people that make amazing graphics and visuals and infographics. So it's great to learn and how other people are building their brands and their careers and what they're learning as well. And yeah, and then we have weekly trainings, we have workshops. Specifically on the data and databases team, the AWS leadership is really, really great. They actually ask us very regularly the types of things that we want to be learning about. And these might be new solutions that were released in reInvent. So if not, 2 months ago, maybe 1 month ago, and they're already asking us, can we give you training on maybe these new tools or ways to enable your career to be, bigger and better and more efficient. So I love that because it sort of feels like AWS is looking after us as developers and they want us to succeed. And I think that's really helpful because you need mentors. But I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, you need a mentor. But what does actually a mentor mean? Like sometimes you just need people to help train you and build with you and kind of like hold your hand and like take you along for the ride. So that's really where I see AWS's value for me, which I'm really grateful for, is really enabling that to happen and to help me learn what I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, I still have yet to learn, but
Yeah,
they
sure.
make that okay. And they're like, yep, you're going to learn that eventually, but let's focus on those layers and build up.
And can anybody become an AWS community builder? Like, how did you get into that? Did you apply for anything, or?
Yeah, so it's people with a passion for specifically AWS. Makes sense. But then it's sort of, do you have a background in it? Have you been building with it? Are you passionate about creating content? I sort of equate it to being sort of a developer advocate in a sense. AWS has their actual developer advocates, but it's developer advocate-esque because we're encouraged to write blog posts. We're encouraged to share what we're learning, what we're building. So it makes a lot of sense if you have that background in AWS, if you've built projects, or that's a part of your company stack. That would make sense, for you to apply. And then it's a fairly long process in terms of application, and you have to fill out a whole bunch of questions. And they basically just want to know, really like what fires you up and why are you interested in cloud? Like, what do you see as the potential here? So it's sort of it's I wouldn't necessarily. I would say it's definitely open to everyone, but I'd say if you're really passionate about it, it's specifically for you. Like if you really like the cloud and you like what it can do and what it can enable for a technology or a startup or a big corporation, or even for just a side project, and you like making apps on the side, I'd say being a community builder is for you and definitely would be worth checking out.
Okay, interesting. So does that help you as well with networking or like connecting with people? Did did it help you maybe connect with other professionals or around the world and in your career as well?
Oh, absolutely. There's actually some people that I used to follow on social media, like way back when, and or people that like you people that you follow on Twitter, and then you're like, oh, that's you. So I've had so many of those moments where it's like, oh wow, like you're here too. And then we like talk, and I think that's really great about how AWS has fostered this really like a feel good community of you know people that really care and are passionate and love helping. I think that that's one of the biggest benefits of the community is just aligning around like-minded peers. That's just something that personally has helped me, and yeah, it's amazing because I've had really great. Cause sometimes like you'll connect over Slack, and then you're like, oh, like let's set up Zoom. I mean, because it's a pandemic, you can't like go and get coffee, which you might do if there's people that's local, but Zoom, Google Meet, Amazon has Chime. There's just different ways that you can meet people. So even Slack has a whole video channel where you can like set up a call with someone virtually. So that's what's been really great to enable that is being able to just talk to people and learn. So I love that about the community.
Great. So I see the time is running. So I have one question regarding your position right now. So you said earlier that you were coming from a non-technical background, then you had this project and you got into AWS cloud computing. So what do you do now? And are you working with AWS now? I mean, like using AWS. What are you doing? I really want to show people that like even coming from far from the technical background, like if you really want to invest in this career plan, then you can succeed. And I think you're a great example of that.
Thanks. Yeah. So right now, so I'm CTO and co-founder of a Boston startup called Airblock Technologies, and we're digitizing documentation and manual processes in the aviation and aerospace industry. So what's been really great was I joined the team as a software engineer, basically from a referral because someone said like, oh, you need someone who's like a developer, and then this person's like passionate, like wants to learn and stuff. So it was cool to sort of come into the team from a developer perspective, and then I became co-founder of the company last fall. So it's been cool to really contribute to a company. Now as CTO, you find there's a lot to learn, especially with building a startup and building a business. So that's been very cool because just getting involved in that open source project or those projects or that team or those networks, it's really helpful. Even going to hackathons, I made a lot of networks and connections. So that's really how I even got to this company in the first place. Just because I went to a hackathon and someone who organized it was like, connecting like me with this team. So that's really cool about taking opportunities and leveraging them. And yeah, I mean, it's great. So we use AWS in our serverless architecture. That's been really great. It's been a huge learning experience for me, which is really great because I get to see really I have wide latitude of learning and depth of building. And then I also do a brand strategy and consulting on the side. So sort of mixing that in with my work at my startup.
Cool. So let's say we're gonna give some kind of a conclusion here to our very interesting chat. So let's say I'm a new person wanted to get into cloud computing. I know that I have to take my CCP exam. What tips would you give me?
Yeah, I would say just to start, stay motivated and stay hungry and get inspired. The career journey is long and it's a marathon, not a sprint. So really like when you start, it's really easy to just get overwhelmed with all of the things that you have to learn, but really like, take like a moment, maybe meditate, maybe breathe, maybe take a night's sleep, think about it in the morning. But when you start, it's sort of, okay, I'm going to climb the staircase and what are the steps that I need to take to get there? So take a bucket, go into compute and study that. Go into billing and understand how AWS bills, understand security and understand the different solutions there. In terms of database storage, think about that. What are the different types of databases and how do you write code for them? And why would you use one over the other? I'd say, again, there's a million things to learn out there, but get really focused on what are the actual steps to the exam. And a lot of this content that you can find, there's like, AWS has a ton of white papers, which are really great. There is one on sort of the fundamental frameworks for a well-architected system. That actually probably was the most helpful white paper for me, because that really helped me understand, why am I using cloud and not a traditional database? Why would I use AWS and not sort of my locally run, Apache server or system or something like that? So I'd say just for anyone that's looking to get into this, it's doable, it's possible. If it seems really scary, it might just seem scary because it's new, but just because something's new doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that, you have something to learn, and that's great. I'd say it's an opportunity, not an impediment. I think that we don't want to like get in our heads too much of, I sometimes it's you might lock yourself out of an opportunity because the risk of failing or the risk of not succeeding is really scary. But if sometimes I always love this quote, because it's like, if your dreams aren't, and I think Elon Musk actually says this, but a lot of people say it now, but it's sort of, if your dreams aren't scary, they're not big enough. So think about like, what's the end goal, right? If you understand the cloud, you could build the next Facebook, the next Google, the next Amazon, right? You could build the next system. You could build the next app. Like, look at Venmo, look at Stripe, look at, PayPal. Those are all serverless architected systems. They actually, at reInvent, they had a great session about Lego and about Venmo and how they use serverless architecture, AWS, for completely different reasons. And that's really cool, because it's not one size fits all. There's so many different colors to the palette. So it's just kind of like, find what excites you, like find your why. And then once you find your why, it's going to become so clear of why you're going to do this. And that's going to propel you forward.
Nice. Well, at least you are really passionate, so it really shows them that really is a good message to communicate. So know your why, stay motivated, but step by step. Like,
exactly.
Don't be freaked out by all the content that you see. And and in terms of format, obviously it really depends on what kind of learner you are, but having maybe short form video format can help you really grasp the different concepts one at a time. I'm like you, reading stuff can be quite difficult, and especially like nowadays when we're watching screens all day long, we're watching visual content a lot, even on social media, and we feel that the way to learn new things can be better if it's like short, visually attractive, and doesn't explain one concept at a time. So that's essentially what we're trying to do with the Bitdegree AWS training course for the CCP exam. And as you mentioned, we are just preparing people just to take the exam and to pass it. We actually, recently we were watching the stats, and we have a 100% success rate for all the exam that were taken. So we're quite proud of that. Thanks so much. Do you want to add anything, or it was really, really useful to have you live. I hope we can do that again.
Absolutely.
So what's your next project? What are you going to be working on next?
Yeah, what am I going to be working on next? That's always a big question. I'd say I'm really focused on my startup and really just learning how to build in the cloud, and specifically with Airblock. I like to say what we're doing is pretty cool and transformative, specifically to help digitize manual processes. So it's digital transformation at scale. And I'm really excited about it because, what technology enables you to do is solve challenges at the end of the day, right? That's why we're here. We're here as builders because it doesn't exist, and we want to build something so it does exist. And, you can really bring your passions into existence. So that's really what I'm focused on. I'd say projects. I'm very interested in AI and machine learning, and deep learning right now. I was talking to an amazing colleague of mine that I'm actually going to be releasing on my own podcast, the Tech Stack Playbook. I did a whole hour-long conversation with this genius AI machine learning scientist, and it blew my mind what he has built his career around and what he knows. And we break down different elements of, what a neural net is and how AI works. And it was just fascinating. So I'm really excited to dig more into that type of technology. But even still, I'm very focused on also mentoring and also helping. I had a ton of imposter syndrome coming into this space. I feel like we always have imposter syndrome in technology. We still all talk about that. So I was going to say, if anyone ever wants to talk about cloud or AWS or any sort of technology, please reach out to me.
Follow you on Instagram. I mean, you share a lot of stuff and very interesting stuff. And
that's how we met on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And also, we're always on the lookout for mentors. So we didn't have this discussion, but if you want to be a mentor for Bitdegree, then obviously you're most welcome to join the team.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Love that.
Great. Well, thanks so much. And I hope it was helpful for everybody. It was for me, at least. And we had a very nice conversation. Everything will be on the YouTube channel. So you can watch it, rewatch it, skip some parts, whatever you want. And yeah, follow Brian on his Instagram. That's your Instagram handle, right?
Yeah, Brian H. Hough, but it's on Twitter, it's on LinkedIn. That's my handle. Awesome. It's pretty much everything social is Brian H. Hough. So I try to make it easy for people to find me. So
that's good to have the same everywhere. Okay, great.
Having that branding background, it's like we always talk about brand cohesion. So it's got to have the same handle for everything. Totally. Company, person, make it easy. Totally.
Great. Thanks, Brian. And we'll speak to you soon.
Awesome. Gwen, thank you so much as well. Bye. This was amazing. All right. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.